I'm going to shut up because I've been talking for too long already. So, questions? Yes?
So backing up when you talked about customers not understanding what they need and the need to understand their unspoken wants and needs.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you do that?
One is it is by the skill of observation. So what we typically did, so for instance, when we were working on the Slate device, we actually did studies. We actually went around to a variety of different cities, large cities and small cities all over the place, and we went into people's homes. And without asking them what they actually did, we'd go in and we'd do things like we'd photograph their bookshelves. So what kind of books do they read? Are they more recent books? Or is it fiction or nonfiction? Big, thick books, thin books? How many magazines do they read? What's the magazine pile look like? Now, I'm a big magazine reader, which drives my wife nuts because next to my bed, I never throw anything away. I have Wired magazine back to issue number 1. And I'm very proud of that, right? I also have my Byte collection also, but that's a little too geeky. But you look at what people do in their homes. How much time do they watch TV? Is their family, do they eat around the table all the time? What are the things, how do they spend their time in a given day? So during our observational studies, we'll videotape them in their homes, and then we log everything they do. Because one of the things we find is one good indication of the unspoken needs and unspoken wants is look at time, right? Time is the most valuable asset we all have, right? And if you can deliver something that saves them time, makes them more efficient, gives them perception of getting more done in any given day, customers will attribute high value to that, right? So I'll take a base example. You're going to go buy some new piece of technology, right? And you set aside 2.5 hours on a Saturday to go set it up, right? Saturday comes around, you go to set it up, takes 15 minutes and you're done. What's your perception? Woohoo! Wow, that's a great piece of technology because now I've got all this time that I had originally allocated for this. I can go do something else, something that's more interesting, right? In the case of e-readers, if you look at how people actually use the Kindle e-readers and the Sony e-readers, what's the one thing that people are doing a lot with? Snacking. You find people standing in line, where they're on a ticket line or whatever, they pull it out and they're reading, right? Now, they're still standing in line, but their perception of the fact that they're more productive, more pleasurable, they got more, quote, done in that time becomes highly valuable. We just completed a study where we created some technology for India, where we developed a method of delivering a web services kind of experience without the assumption of literacy. Let's face it, today's computing architecture assumes you can read and write in your local language, a la a keyboard, right? A little hard to use if you don't speak if you don't read and write in your local language. We've developed an approach that allows you to get around that constraint, and we developed a test where in India, people can go online in a cloud services and order a train ticket, assuming no literacy to do the train ticket. Normally, you're going to spend 7 to 8 hours standing in line to get a train ticket. Now you can do a train ticket in 15 minutes. What's their perception? So one of the key kind of tricks I shouldn't say tricks, one of the approaches that we do is when we videotape people or we follow people around for days on end is do time logging. How do they spend their time? Where's the majority of their time being spent? Are they finding that time spent is either pleasurable or necessary? Meaning I got to do this, but it's not something I want to do, versus this is what I find pleasurable, versus people who activities that in fact steal time, like fixing your PC problem. That, in effect, is stealing time, right? So time becomes one. Find a unit of measure in the context of a user. Measure how they value that unit. In this case, time is one of the important ones. And then find if you can deliver something that has an impact on that time in a positive sense, then that becomes really an unspoken need or unspoken want, because they don't know how to shorten the time. I've always stood in line. I've always ordered train tickets this way. I've always stood for 8 hours when I wanted to go get a train ticket in Delhi. Versus now, wow, I can do this online, and I can do it in 15 minutes. I didn't even know it was possible. But wow, that's hugely valuable to me. Okay?
When you're watching the customers, are you putting ethnographers in there?
Yes.
Or letting engineers get closer?
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't let all, for us, here, a little dirty laundry. When I came into HP, sitting in one of my first design reviews on a new product, and they're running through the featured list, and I'm looking at a couple of features, and I'm going, what customer requested that feature? Right? I just couldn't figure out why, what was the customer doing, and the engineers proudly go, oh, no, we came with that idea. Okay, why? Well, because we thought it would be a cool idea. Ah. So we're building a product for the 46,000 engineers of HP because they're the only ones that are going to figure out how to use that feature, right? Versus now when a feature list gets published, it's understanding what's the customer ask, what's the customer impact, and the engineers, putting those engineers out in front. This facility that you're in is what's called our Executive Briefing Center. It's where we bring customers in. It's where we also bring our engineers to actually meet up with customers, where we do what we call co-innovation sessions, where we think about new products and new services, new things to solve problems that unique customers have. But it's important not to have just, quote, designers in the room. It's about having the engineers. It's about also having that different perspectives. Because an ethnographer may not truly understand what the problem is because they don't have the technical aspect to understand how they could change that. And by really marrying those teams up effectively, that's where you get the real big win.
So in your 5-question ranking, out of the first 3 questions, which are user experience and competitiveness and changing an industry, is there one that sticks out as more likely to be gotten wrong from the ideation to the product that comes out?
Well, the economics of the industry is pretty well you can measure and understand because you just understand what's the value chain for an industry and how are you going to change the value chain. The hardest one to get is the customer's experience or expectations because you're dealing with the psychology of humans, right? And you may think you know it, but in reality, that's the one you got to test on. So if you think you've got something that really fundamentally changes the experience, you got to be careful that it's not your experience. You would want that experience. You think it's a good experience versus what do your customers really think. And so from that perspective, that becomes the one that's the hardest to do that kind of that natural gut check, right? I can understand the competitive positioning because I know my competitors, and if I can truly deliver something, I can see where my, how I would message and market that. I can understand the economics. How do people make money today in the industry? And and if I do this, how is that going to change how people make money? That's fairly easy. It's customers' experiences and expectations because you're dealing with the psychology side. And that's where testing and that constant iteration becomes increasingly important. And there's always the people that say, oh yeah, this is fundamentally going to change the experience. Then you put it in front of the customer and they go, the customer just doesn't get it. And that's the one that tends to be so if you got one that's really high on experience and expectation and it's kind of the same on the economics of the industry and the same kind of on the competitive positioning, that would be a red flag to me. It's like, I'm not so sure on this one. Let's iterate, and we'll challenge people. Okay, you got the customer's experience. Now, how do you use that to change the economics of the industry? Force them to look beyond just having the one perspective on the idea.